Okay, so okay, fine. If there is a framework in the market, it is to make the life simple. Okay, without that, it is going to be very hard. So that's where frameworks are there in the market. We want to build web application, so we need some web framework software. And in the Java world, the Spring is one of a very popular one, and since a long time, people have been using it. Okay? Now, over a period of time, whenever you use certain software, you get some observations, right? Okay, hey, this can be improved. There are better ways of doing it. So like this, people always keep improving on things. And that is where they realize some of the areas of improvements of Spring. And then later in the market, Spring Boot came up. So now Spring is also there, but Spring Boot is also there, a better, faster, and many people are adapting to Spring Boot way of web application development. Okay. What is in Spring Boot and all, we will discuss that. Okay. However, just be aware, we want to do web application framework development. So for that, Spring was a very popular name for a very long time. Now, on top of Spring, they extended the Spring to behave like a Spring Boot application. And yes, in the projects, people are using it. And now many projects are starting like Spring Boot based projects itself. Okay. So this is how it is. Okay, now, yesterday we understood one very important aspect of Spring, which is like the entire object, okay, life cycle, nothing but from creation till destruction, till end. So creating the object, maintaining it, mapping it here and there till the end. The entire life cycle of object is managed by Spring. So for example, if you're doing a simple core Java programming, you write a class, and which might have some variables and methods, and then you write B class in simple core and advanced Java. This is how we do it. We write, okay, now, if there is a method M2 here, and in the class A, there is a method M1, you want to call that. So what we do is B object equal to new B, and then we do a B object dot M2. So this is how we regularly do programming. So we create the object by ourselves and then we invoke it, and that's how the entire application works. Now, there are a lot of issues with regards to this. Because when the project scope increases, for same request, let's say, for same request, only one object of B is required. But if the developer, and they go production may guys, how much it is running? Try to think about actual problem with this. There are so many customers in the real world. So many people trying to buy products, trying to make payment, trying to be on social media. So there are like thousands and lakhs of requests possible on a daily basis for bigger systems. You can imagine if every single time for every single request, you start creating objects, it occupies the entire memory. It's not good for cost. It's a very heavy activity. And then garbage collector is also busy. Frameworks are also busy. And with more load, these problems became very obvious because now a lot of people are digitally using applications. So Spring tried to solve this problem. Spring said, Ki, bhai, you don't do this object creation. You focus on writing your logic and executing it. You call whatever you want. But object creation, and next, if A is requiring B, so where this mapping will be provided, this dependency will be provided, Spring said, we will take care of it. Okay. So developers don't create and manage objects. Rather, Spring framework would do it for us. This is what basic Spring framework said. So we will take care of it. Okay? And the terminology which they call for this is IoC, inversion of control. Now, initially the control was with developers for object creation and all that. Now that is inverted, inversion of control. Okay, now the control is with the Spring framework that is guiding it. Okay, so, and somehow we will just be getting that B reference here. We will not create it. Spring will create it. It will give it to us, and then we will use it. Okay, so this we discussed yesterday already. Trying to re-summarize the few bullets. Okay, so what do you need to really understand? Point number one: as a developer will not create, okay, key objects. So all the main business objects, whatever required, we are not going to create it. Rather, okay, Spring will create for us. ठीक है. Second, wherever we need, Spring will provide those objects to us. Yesterday we even saw technically how is that possible. Okay? But in order for Spring to create it, we need to tell Spring, okay, we need to tell Spring which objects Spring should manage. Because in your project, you might have created 100 classes, but to Spring, you are saying to manage only these 10 classes because those are the important classes for the business application. So as a developer, you need to still make that decision. So Spring is not like, even if you create objects, the project will run. But Spring says, okay, you don't create it, tell it to us, we will create and maintain for you so that you just run the application. So we have to tell Spring which objects we want Spring to handle. And then Spring is going to give us those objects wherever we need it. This is what it is as simple. Okay, guys, clear? Spring takes care. We need to tell Spring, and Spring will give us wherever we want. Clear, team? Give a quick thumbs up if you get this point. Okay. Yesterday we saw even practical. Today we are just trying to brush it up a bit. Okay. ठीक है, चलो. Nice, nice. Abhi, yesterday we understood some behind the screen story about this. Okay, internally, Spring has, thanks for confirmation, guys. Thanks. Spring maintains something called as Spring IoC container. Okay, so Spring maintains something like IoC container. So in this, it actually stores the object and all that drama. So when we say Spring is doing some work for us, creating objects and giving wherever required, internally Spring keeps all of that responsibility with IoC container, a kind of a container which contains objects. Okay. Now the thing is, if you write a simple Java class, something like this in our example, if you write a simple Java class like this, it is not going to belong as part of Spring container. Rather, it will be as part of the JVM just lying outside. Okay. But there is a way by which we can do certain actions and annotate this class in a certain manner, and that actually places it in the Spring. Okay. For example, let's come back here. So this is our project coding which we have done. Even yesterday we coded. Okay. For example, let's say we added a controller yesterday, day before, test controller. Inside that we added a test service, and okay, we are not creating object of this. We have asked the Spring to take care, and yesterday we have already seen how it happens using some annotations. Today we are just trying to re-summarize it. But just imagine, okay guys, just imagine, generally the implementations will be as part of the .impl package. We can use ID related some ways of doing it. Move this into the .impl. So automatically a .impl package is created. Sometimes this kind of drama might happen. So just right click it. Dekho, just what drama has happened. This package structure is not aligned properly. So such cases may you simply refresh it. Refresh. It takes care of it. Okay? Second, wherever there is any compilation problem in the system, so you can check it out here, whatever that problem is. Okay, and you can come here, Control Shift O. Okay, keep saving it. Control Shift O is going to do organize import. It corrects everything. So since we changed the package, so accordingly the wherever we were using that package, that is also modified. So these are few basic things. Okay, refreshing it, realigning, go to the problem section there. All your compilation problems will be there. Sometimes if you feel you have done everything right, still ID is not behaving properly, go to project, go to clean, and then do a cleaning activity. Sometimes mess happens in ID. Okay? So you can do all that and reset the application. But what we're trying to say is, okay, let's say we create a new service class. Okay, let's say my new service. We are creating a simple new Java class, and we are calling this is a service class. So when you create this simple class, when the Spring environment runs, it is going to belong outside the Spring container. This is what we are saying. It will belong here. Okay. When we write now my new service, it belongs here. So Spring is not maintaining it. Okay? It belongs outside. Now, the point is, how will Spring maintain that is with the use of some annotations. So we need to tell Spring which objects should be managed by Spring. For that, there are certain set of annotations. Okay. For example, we can simply write here @service, and it will automatically have that power @service, and Spring will start maintaining it. Okay, can we have a quick demonstration of this? Let's take it simply. First, I will just comment this thing out. Let's put a method here, public void test method. Okay, sys out, and there we call test method invoked of this class. So fine. Okay, okay. Some kind of loggers we have written. This is fine. Let's save the entire application. Right click, run as. Let's run the application. Clean Spring Boot :run. Okay, let it happen. Okay. We just created a new basic Java application, a Java class with simple method. Now we are starting the server. So whatever we are seeing, describing it, explaining it, usko practically, let's see the results. Okay. So Spring is started on 8080. We come here. We are making that API call. The result is coming. 10 plus 15 is like 25. So it's working. That's fine. But the point is, now we just created the object. We are now step by step. Let's experiment. Theoretically speaking, we have not given this object to Spring to take care. Now, another experiment comes. Okay, we want to use this object. Want to use this object in another class. So in order to do that, ideally speaking, let's say if our add service IMPL, here if we want to use the object of that, we can simply create a reference. Okay, new service. Control-Shift-O is for organized import. We have already taken that shortcut. Control-Shift-O, we get it. Okay. Now, guys, yesterday we asked this question again. So if we do like this, and then using this, if we just simply call it dot, let's say test method. Okay. So invoking test method, and you call the test method. Now, guys, quickly tell me, okay, if I save this file, will there be, okay, the simple question is, will there be any, what will happen basically, right? Trace the output. Okay, will there be compilation problem? Think. Okay, will there be compilation problem or Spring startup problem, or while executing problem, or whether everything will be fine? Put your core Java knowledge into it. It's like 1, 2, 3, and 4. So this executing is when I call the add method. When we call add method, this is like as soon as we save, due to dev tool dependency, Spring will automatically try to start. Otherwise, there is a compilation problem and everything is okay and it will run. So these are the 4 options. The situation is like this. We created a new service class. It's not having any annotation. It's a plain simple Java class with a method. Now this class, I have added it here, okay, as an instance variable, no annotation. It's a plain simple addition. And then I'm copying this and trying to just call the method. Now tell me from 1, 2, 3, 4, what is going to happen? And I will just put a poll here. Okay. Let's see how majority thinks. What will happen? Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 is compilation. Second is Spring start. Third is execution error, Spring start error, and fourth is all good. everything will work. Okay, what will happen? Chalo, launch. Let's go to the poll. Compilation error, spring start error, execution error, or all will be good. Please mark it this. Guys, put it. You have to really question everything, guys. Somewhere in the college time, we stopped doing that, and maybe we start memorizing the code, but real world doesn't work. How can you code something by remembering line by line? It's not possible, right? You have to think. What is happening, why it is happening, then only you will be able to solve or build projects. Okay, there are like around 45 members marked it, like 50 pakad lete. Still, out of that, 30 members are saying it is going to be execution problem, and remaining still there are scattered observations. Okay? Now the point is, this shows ki thoda sa, now how do you think? Basically, the answer basically talks about how do you think. Now it might be right, it might be wrong, but you should have a strong reason for whatever your answer is, right? And if you are saying compilation, like what will not work? What will not work? You have to think compilation, kya gadbad ho sakti hai? If it is spring startup, execution, and this fourth one, all good. 5 people are saying everything will be good. Now let's start thinking how a basic core Java application works. Okay, first, if you use an IDE, let's say I'm going ahead saving it first. Okay, I'm just saving it. In our system, dev tool is there, so it will try to restart Spring also. So if I save right now, 1 and 2 pe se, we will know whether it is a problem or not a problem. Okay? If there is compilation problem, IDE itself will tell us if it is a compilation problem. Second, if it is a Spring startup problem, as soon as I save it, dev tool will try to restart. We will see one whether that's problem or not. So we just go ahead saving this. Okay. Now, what does this mean? There is nothing in the problem section. That means it is not having any compilation problem. So all the members who said compilation, you have to think, why do you think compilation? Kya gadbad hai? That means your core knowledge pe you need to work more. Because you predicted compilation and it's not a problem. So sochna padega. Your core knowledge of Java mein, there is a way of growth required. Okay? Second, 11 members said ki Spring related. They could be the members who were not available yesterday during session, but you need to at least understand, okay, Spring startup problem. When both the classes, this new service class is also not managed by Spring, and here also you're not using, it's a simple core Java, so Spring do not have a problem with that. It's fine. Like this object is also not managed by Spring, and here also you're not trying to use it. So that is the reason Spring do not have a problem, because you have not even told. What are we saying? Dekho, we said we need to tell Spring which objects should they manage, should the Spring manage. Currently, we have not told. If you have not told, Spring do not care. Spring starts caring when you have given Spring a responsibility, and then the application is not working like that. Then it will fail on startup and tell you, okay, what is the problem? Currently, we have not even told Spring to take care about this object. So Spring is very happy. Spring does not care. That is the reason the application started up and we are able to work through it. Okay, so please understand. When ownership is given to Spring, then Spring comes in play. Otherwise, it is like, developer is doing something, do it. And fine, the third answer, which majority said 36 member, execution mein problem rahega. And I think from all the 36, majority will be correct on that. The reason here is a simple again core Java. We are trying to have only reference of the object. Okay, reference is there. We have never initialized it ourselves. So we did not initialize it. Plus we did not even tell Spring to initialize it. That means this object is going to be null. And on null, when you do a method call, it is going to throw a null pointer exception. That is where the answer number, this 37 members are correct. Because object we have not created, we did not tell even Spring to create it. If nobody does, automatically the value is going to be null. If on null you're trying to call a test method, it is definitely going to fail. So yes, the answer is going to be execution error. Now 7 members said all good. You have to still think, How can that be all good? We did not initialize it. We did not tell Spring to initialize it. If both of us did not do it, then who is going to do it? There is no third person. Either we take care or Spring take care. Nobody did it, so automatically all good to ho hi nahi sakta. There has to be, because somebody has to do that, right? Either developer or Spring. So now let's call that. Let's hit it. And yes, there is a null pointer exception. And it is clearly saying we cannot invoke this method at line number 27 in start. So we can copy this. We can go to this. We can simply click Control Shift T, class line number, and Control L, and go to that line number 27. This is how you always look at the error, go to the code, open it, reach out to the line, and then pinpoint, try to analyze, okay, here null is there. That is where this has happened. So look at the error, try to interpret it. And that itself means, okay, so there is a problem. The main reason for this problem is we did not take care. We did not take care. Also, we did not tell Spring to take care. That is the problem. Nobody took care. So there are two solutions for that. Guys, clear? Give a quick thumbs up. Think. Try to understand, try to interpret. 37 members are correct. And I think most of them might have said ki null pointer hi aane wala hai. So I think they have the clarity. But remaining still there are around 20 members. Growth ki requirement hai, right? Logical thinking has to grow. Okay, fine, chalo, thanks for confirming. Now comes the next question. How do we solve it? There are two solutions. One solution is we create object. Second solution is we tell Spring to create object. Okay, fine. How do we create object? We know that basics. I'm doing a F3 here, I go here. How do we create object? We simply know how to do it in core Java. New, like this, and then saving it. Okay. Spring started, and then trying to invoke it. Done. Answer is ready. We are able to even call that test method, right? Test method, we wrote this logger there. My new service test method invoke, and it is invoked from here when we call this method. So that means one solution is either the developer takes care. Okay. But this is not the right solution. This is not why the Spring framework is there. A developer is not supposed to take care of all this. Again, same reasoning happens. If let's say 1,000 requests are coming, all of the requests, okay, will try to call this method at the same time. Now, this is fine. This object is going to be created once. While the object is being created, here we are trying to create the object reference only once. So at least this is happening once, so that is good. But still, okay, entire memory management, garbage collector, Spring has not taken care. But Spring framework is designed to do all that object lifecycle for us. So we should not create such kind of objects. When we use framework, we should take the advantage of the framework. They have created very efficient way of managing objects, giving the references and all that. So we should not do these things. That's not a recommended practice to do when working with frameworks. So when you use framework, take the benefit of that. And that is where approach number 2. We don't create. You should. Okay. So that's not a good way of working with Spring. We should tell Spring to create. This is the right one. When we tell Spring to create, what I automatically do, we can use some annotation. There are ways by which we can tell Spring to create. One way is @service. When we do it like this, @service, automatically Spring will create object of this class. Okay. So that means if we just go here inside this class and we just do this like this and click on save. Okay. So ideally, as soon as you do this, you're telling Spring system, hey, create the object of this class and give me wherever I need it. So these are the two things. It will create the object, and then wherever you need it, it will provide it to you. But behind the screen, how it happens? Spring tries to see, okay, this class is annotated with some annotation @service. That means when the Spring system is trying to come up, most of the times during initialization itself, it will create an object of this my service. And Spring is going to put this object Spring is going to put this object as part of the IoC container. Here it will put it, so that wherever it needs to provide, it can give it to the other objects. So that is the first thing. We can use @service, and then Spring is going to manage it for us. Okay. Now again a question, guys. Thoda think and answer this in the chat. Currently, if we do only this code, this what we have done, just added @service with no modification here as it is. Now simple question to you. How many objects of my service will be created? My new service, okay? How many objects will be created? Can you guys put it in chat? How many objects? One object, two object. If with the current code, we have told Spring also to take care, plus we are also taking care. So how many objects will be created? Okay. There are actually scattered. 1 and 2, 1 and 2, 1 and 2. Actually, there are scattered answers, right? Okay, many are saying 1, some are saying 2. It's actually mixed. So I think the audience will be also here and there. Few of the members, okay, it's actually split. Now, thoda sa dekho, when you get a doubt, you have to experiment it. That's how a developer grows. You don't take things for assumption. You are doing a detective kind of work. You have to always think, Spring is also creating, I am also creating. How many objects might actually happen? You have to test your theory to really see it. And that's how you know how the framework works. Experiment karna padega. Now all of a sudden, how do we create an experiment? A simple thing is, we know that basics of Java, we know that always some constructor is invoked for object creation. So what if we write it something like this? Make your constructor public. We write it something like this, sys out. Okay. And then creating this object, and let's put something like this. Okay, putting it like this. Now we are trying to save it. Let's see what happens. Okay, just see what has happened. 2 times the constructor is called. Okay, maybe how about we write a this here? Simple. In your core Java, you know all this variables and all these things. Let's say we write a simple this here. Once you get this kind of grip on your project, automatically then debugging, finding things, just see 2 different objects. For this, when we write, this is the class @hashcode, I guess. So these are 2 different objects. So one object is created by Spring, another one is created by us. By mistake, if a developer writes like this, you will still not be able to use the power of Spring framework, because you are also creating, Spring is also creating. That's not the right way of coding. Again, understand, whatever you code, it has a consequences behind the screen. And when you work with frameworks, you have to understand those consequences. Not randomly you can write like this and you assume, "Arey, code to chal raha hai." No, it's not working. This is a broken code. 2 objects are there. Spring is creating, you are also creating. No, this is a failing code. You have not even used the power of Spring here. Even though coding, functionality, everything will be fine, but it's a wrong coding which you have done. So we should not create our object. We should use the object which is given by the Spring. Okay. Now, how do we really do that? And for that, we have another annotation. So, okay, which is for this. Wherever we need, Spring will provide those objects to us, but we have to tell Spring to do that. And one popular annotation, there are multiple ways of doing it. One simple way we will understand, using @auto wired annotation. When you use auto wired, then Spring is very intelligent. It goes and sees, okay, in the system, do I have an object which this guy is wanting? And it will give you the reference of that object here. Okay, thoda sa let's experiment here. Okay, so we will just put this as auto wired. Here we go back here, and here we put it as auto wired. Okay, now application started. Application started. Dekho, You might do everything right, right? We create there, we create this trying to auto wire so that we tell Spring, iska object, give it here. But still, by mistake, if you still add this internally in the memory, still two objects are being referred. Now we need to now get another doubt. Okay, what will actually be assigned to this? Will Spring created object be assigned? Right now, this is how curiosity grows in developer. There are two objects. One is inside the container. There is another object outside the container, which you created using the new keyword. Now, when you're doing it like this, eventually, which object is going to be given to you? Your created object or Spring provided object? That we need to again experiment. So first of all, yes, we should not do this. But if you do it, how the framework behaves, you should have even control on that. So maybe it will first assign this, and then on top of that, because of auto-wired, give you the Spring reference. There are ways even to do that testing. We can talk about that. There are ways to even do that testing. But thoda sa, we need to understand these few things. Now, what I will do is, first of all, let's just call this. We have saved it. Let's just call this. Is the code working, first of all? Yes, we got the response. Test method is invoked. So yes, we are able to call it. Now, the thing is, we don't want, as a developer, we don't want to create this object. We want fully Spring wala use karna hai. That is where we are trying to do this. And then we save, and let's see what happens. We removed our object creation. And accordingly, what happened? Only one object is created now. In earlier two was there, so we removed our thing, so only one is created. This one is created by Spring system. Okay, so automatically now we can be confident whatever Spring is creating, we are assigning it here, and then we are working with it. Okay, now again, if we call it, the system should be functional. The system is functional. Functional means we are able to call that method. Okay, again, if we comment this, we have already seen this. If we comment this, that means Spring is creating it, but we are not using it. And then this will end in a null pointer exception. So basics understand, Spring has to create it and give it wherever required. For that, we need to auto wire where we want to use it. And for defining it, we can use something like this. Okay, so right now, if I call it, dekho, just observe, we commented auto wired. Still the object is created because @ service has happened. The object is created, but you are not injecting it to yourself. Okay, so that is the reason currently also it will fail with a null pointer exception because object itself is not there. Okay, so fine, guys, are you guys clear with what we have seen so far? Give a quick thumbs up. Basics understand. Okay, nice. Okay, nice stuff. Nice. Thanks for confirming, team. Now, guys, the next thing, there are multiple annotations by which we can give it to the Spring system. One is @ service. So, guys, be aware how these things work. Okay? Chalo, fine, team, come. So, @ service is going to do that. There are another annotation called as @ component. Using this @ component also, Spring assumes I have to take it and creates an object. Third, @ repository. With this also, Spring creates and moves it inside. Fourth, okay, @ controller. Next, @ rest controller. These are the annotations. If you use any of these annotations, by default, Spring is going to take that Java class and start maintaining it. Okay, as simple as that. Now, you need to even understand this thing. If there is a class, yesterday we saw this example. If there is another class, let's say class 2, which you are not annotating via Spring. So here you are not annotating with any of that. It's a simple plain Java class. If that is the case, even if you use any auto wired here, Spring cannot give you those references here. So Spring injections work only within this container itself. If this class is managed by Spring and this class is managed by Spring, and then you use auto wired, then Spring can give it to one another. But if your class is not even managed by Spring and you say auto wire it to me, Spring says we cannot do it. As simple as that. Okay, Spring cannot really do that. So for you to use auto wire, you have to make sure both the classes have to be part of the container itself. So what does this mean? Looking at our example, okay, looking at our example, where are we? Code. Currently, at service IMPL with AutoWire, we are able to access that. The core reason being, this one is also annotated using Spring related annotation, which has added at service IMPL inside the Spring container. So at service IMPL is able to access that other one. Service IMPL is able to call that other one because both are residing here. If we remove this annotation, Spring will be like, I cannot do this for you. I cannot give you these two objects. When you try to really call this, both of these two values will come null. Okay, for example, let's try to experiment this out. We are saying, hey, Spring, we don't want you to take care of this class for us. Okay, if we say that, let's save it first. Application is breaking. Why the application is breaking? Okay, in test controller, we are asking to give us object of this yesterday's code. In test controller, we are asking Spring to give us object of this. So just see, in the test controller of yesterday, we created, okay, add service, object of add service, and we did an auto wired. So that means current situation is test controller is also available here. How do we know test controller is available here? Because we have annotated test controller with REST controller. As soon as you do that, Spring starts taking care of this. Now, while Spring is trying to take care of this test controller, it realized, oh, I need to have an object of add service because of this auto wired property. So Spring is checking within the system, do we have add service IMPL? Currently, we have removed it. We have commented it out. So currently Spring is not able to find this one, and this is lying outside the container. So automatically Spring is saying, hey, what is this nonsense? You're asking me to give you a bean. You have not even given me a bean to take care. How can I give you back? So Spring is just failing there. Okay, application failed to start. You're asking me something I don't even have. Spring says, I cannot help you here. Just application is not going forward. So please be aware of these things. Okay, so if Spring is not able to provide, what is the other way? Maybe we can create that object, but just understand it goes through the same loop again. So if you want Spring to take care, the conclusion which you draw here is, if you want Spring to take care and inject values to one another, we need to make sure that these values, all the objects, have to be managed by the Spring container. Then only you will be able to actually work with it. Otherwise, not. As simple as that. Okay, guys, is this clear? All the objects, auto wiring and this, they have to be part of container. Then only you can inject it. Otherwise, the Spring cannot give you the references. So in your day-to-day coding, you will find these kind of errors and exceptions if you don't annotate it properly and don't use it properly. Okay? So fine. Let's try to fix ourselves. Okay, thanks for all confirmation. This is core important things to understand. So we will fix it. Okay, we will say this @service. Okay, save it. As soon as we give it in the Spring environment, Spring is able to create the object, Spring is able to give to test controller, and Spring is saying, okay, everything is good, life is jinga lala. Right? So all things happened, and now we can go here and we are able to call here, and everything works because everything is managed properly. So that's the next conclusion. Okay, both of the guys has to be part of the container so that values can be assigned to one another. Okay, fine. Now let's look at this. We are speaking 2-3 times. Yesterday we said, today also we said, there are these multiple ways to do that. You already know when to use controller and REST controller. We have discussed it, so we will not repeat it again, but it's for controller layer. But later these three things come in. When to use a service, when to use a component, when to use a repository. Okay? Dekho, anything which depend, okay, service, anything which is core business logic, you always annotate it with @service. Something which defines the business logic, always make it @service. Okay? Next, we said three-layered application, right? Service, controller, service, IMPL. That same thing. Repository is nothing but DAO. Controller layer, service layer, DAO layer. DAO layer is nothing but @repository. This represents anything like talking to a database. So another terminology. Repository annotation is for the DAO layer. Any class where you write the code to talk to the database, that you annotate it with @repository. That is not a service business logic. So service business logic, you put it @service. Three-layered application hi hai yahan pe, nothing more than that. @controller is going to controller layer. @service is going to service layer. @repository is going for the DAO layer. Yesterday we discussed that standard. This is how you can annotate it. Dekho, Spring guys internally has done a lot of management related things. If it is database, maybe some special care they will put. Database connection is closed properly, and they will do some special work at their side when it is annotated with @database. In object creation, releasing and all, assuming DB is being managed, so better handling will be done. So this we use for database functionality, this we use for business logic. Okay, now sometimes if you are not able to decide, okay, hey, this is not an actual functionality, maybe a utility class. Yesterday we said utility class, right? Maybe a utility class, you say, this is not DB logic also, and this is not the core functionality also. I still want Spring to take care of that. Maybe you can define a utility with a static method and you can just call that and work with it. But if you want even your utility class to be taken care by Spring, you can use this third annotation @component. It is a very generic one. Component means anything which you want Spring to take care, you can put with @component. Something which is very specific to business logic, you put it in @service, and something in database, you put it like this. But by using these simple annotations, and then you have @controller and @rest controller. But by using this simple 4 or 5 annotations, we can put our Java classes into the Spring IoC, which will be managed, maintained by those guys. This is how you use it. Guys, is this clear? Clear?